When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. "O my Lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. So it's graduation weekend, I think. I didn't actually look at the calendar. I just assumed that Wisco had its graduation yesterday, and all the other high schools had their graduations yesterday, and the seminary had its graduation this week, and Martin Luther College was last week, and Wisconsin Lutheran College was, I don't know, I didn't go, and nobody invited me, and nobody asked me to speak for any graduation service. I don't know if it's because I got a C- in physics in high school, I think. I think they looked at my transcript and they said, no, not this guy. I don't know. So, since I didn't get to do that, this is what you get now. I was at the seminary graduation service getting to see those young men, 2 years younger than me, those young pastors getting ready to be sent out to their different churches. And it was kind of cool because 2 years ago I was in that same situation. Seeing them getting excited to go wherever they're going to Alaska, going to South Dakota, going to New York, going all over the country, getting ready to go to their churches. And I was excited for them, but at the same time, it was more of a cautious optimism. Because I know what's going to happen for those young pastors. They're going to go out, and they're going to do something that they believe is right, and in fact, it will be right, but that doesn't mean it's going to work out the way that they want it to. Those young pastors are going to go out, and they're going to look at their list of members, and some of them have not been to church in a very long time, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and they're going to go visit them and say, it's important for your spiritual well-being that you come to worship, that you hear God's word, that you're strengthened by Holy Communion, that you're worshiping together with other Christians, and then that person is going to say, okay, and then they're going to transfer to another church. The pastor did everything right, doesn't mean it's going to work out the way that he wanted it to. They're going to be counseling a young couple, man and a woman, not married, living together, sleeping together. And the pastor is going to say, what you're doing is wrong. It's not in line with God's word. You need to get your hearts in line with God's heart and value the things that he values. And the couple's going to say, all right, and they're going to walk out that door and never speak to him ever again. And he's going to say, I don't understand. I did what was right. I did what God said in his word. It doesn't mean it's going to work out exactly the way that you want it to. I didn't go to any high school graduations this year. Nobody invited me to their party. Thanks a lot. I didn't go to any, but every year as we get around this time, I think about the students who are going to be graduating. A lot of them have gone to a Christian high school. Maybe they even went to a Christian grade school. And every single day they've gone to chapel, they've had religion class, they've been surrounded by pastors who have taught them God's word. But now they're going to go out, and the world is going to slap them in the face. And maybe it has been doing so already. As they get pressured by people to forget everything that they had just been taught. I don't know if you're on social media much, but it's a tough world out there. The collective mind of everybody on the internet whips up and starts attacking people who don't agree with them. You still think that marriage is between a man and a woman? You still think that maybe high schoolers shouldn't be having sex? That's pretty outdated. It's 2019. You got to get with the program. You still think that abortion might be wrong? It's not a very popular opinion. And depending how strong these high schoolers are, depending on the support system of Christians that they may or may not have surrounded themselves with, they're going to face a lot of peer pressure to give up on the things that they have been taught and follow what the world says instead. And when that happens, I hope that they have the conviction to turn to God and say, God, I know what you have said Following you has brought me into this uncomfortable situation, but I'm going to stick with you anyway. But that's not always what happens. I feel for those people because that's what's going to happen to them. And I feel for this young servant boy. I feel for him because this was not what he signed up for. This servant of Elisha, who was getting up early in the morning and found himself surrounded by an army. Maybe we should back up a little bit. They were surrounded by an army because Elisha and his servant who was following him, they had been doing exactly the right thing. The king of Syria wanted to attack the king of Israel for one reason or another. I'm not sure why. But he wanted to attack him, and so he kept setting up these ambushes. So when the king came by, he would attack him, take his life, maybe take his money, take something from him. And Elisha knew what was happening. Somehow God let Elisha know every single time that the king of Syria was about to ambush and attack the king of Israel. And so Elisha sent word every single time. Said, don't go that way. The king is going to try to get you. Don't go that way. The king is waiting for you. And so the Israelites kept getting away. And the king of Syria said, I don't know which of you is telling the king what's going on, but I don't like it. He was asking his own men, which of you is the mole? Which of you is the spy who's telling the king of Israel to get out of my way? And they said, well, it's none of us. It's Elisha. You remember him. And the king of Syria did remember Elisha because he had sent the commander of his army, Naaman, to Elisha to be healed of his leprosy just a few years earlier. The king knew about Elisha, and he said, all right, fine. We're going to get Elisha first, and then we're going to get the king. Where is he? He's in this town. So they surrounded the town. Horses and armed men and chariots, they were ready to take down the prophet Elisha. And then his servant wakes up early in the morning, and he goes out, and he sees that he's surrounded. I'm not sure why he woke up early in the morning or why it's worth pointing that out in the text. Maybe, like most Israelites at the time, he had grown up on the farm. He was into agriculture, grain and corn, and taking care of animals, milking the goats in the morning. I don't know what he did. Now he's getting up early in the morning. And for whatever his past was, I bet when he woke up, he wished he had done something else with his life. I bet he wished he wasn't a servant. My parents were right. I should have stayed on the farm. I shouldn't have left home. I knew this was a bad idea. I knew, because I know what happened to the last servant. This isn't the first servant that Elisha had. This is the second one. The first one was a man named Gehazi. When this commander of the army of Syria had come to Elisha and been healed of his diseases, he said to Elisha, I want to pay you something. Let me give you some silver. Let me give you some fine sets of clothing for what you've done. Elisha said, I won't take a thing. God was the one who healed you, not me. I won't take anything from you. So Naaman, this man who was healed, he left. But Elisha's servant thought, well, that was dumb. We let him off the hook for nothing. We could have had some money out of this. We could have had some new clothes. And he went up to the man and he lied. He said, some prophets, they showed up. So can you give me some clothing and give me some money to take care of them? And Elisha said, because he knew what had happened. He said, what you have done is wrong. You valued money more than God. You were going to be struck with Naaman's illness. And then that servant, that first servant, Gehazi, he had to live by himself the rest of his life. So Elisha needed a new servant, and he got this guy. And now this servant was rethinking his life choices. He had done everything right. He had followed the prophet. He and Elisha had been doing what God wanted them to do. They were protecting the people of Israel. They were telling them where to go. And all of a sudden, even though they did everything right, it didn't work out for them. And they were surrounded by horses and chariots. They were surrounded by an army. And instead of thinking, God has been with us. God has been with us the whole time, and I'm sure in some way God will deliver us. He's afraid. Afraid in an unchristian way. He says, what are we going to do? I don't think there's anything that can be done. We're surrounded by an army, and they're going to kill us. I understand why he would say that, but he shouldn't. He should have trusted in God instead. I understand that parents who have raised children, who have taught them how to pray, taught them how to read God's word, told them to value that, given them a Christian education, visited them on holidays, told them to stay close to Jesus and his word. Parents who have done everything right. They're not perfect, but as much as they could, they did everything right. And their children still are not in church, are not in worship, are not reading God's word, are not receiving communion, are far away from God, maybe as far as they could be. And parents in that moment can say, I did everything right. I did everything that I was supposed to, and it still didn't work out. But what are they going to say next? Are they going to say, I put the work in and it didn't work out. Forget God. Forget about him. Forget about the church. I'm leaving and I'm not coming back. That would be the wrong response. That would be a sinful response that doesn't trust God, that gives up on him, that says, just because my life is hard, I think God has left me now. God hasn't left you. God won't leave those pastors who get in trouble. God won't leave those graduates. And God didn't leave this servant of God. This reminds me of the disciples in the Garden of Gethsemane when they were with Jesus. Jesus was coming to be, he was going to be arrested by one of his own disciples. And the other disciples got afraid. They said, what are we going to do now? And they all ran away. Every single one of them left Jesus when they should have been there. You have come to those moments too. And I'm going to guess you haven't always stayed. Sometimes you have been afraid. Sometimes you have doubted God's goodness. Sometimes you have run away from what you knew was right because leaving was easier. But God didn't leave. He was there the whole time. When the disciples abandoned Jesus, Jesus stayed there, and he was arrested, and he suffered, and he was killed on a cross. He shed his blood for those same disciples, and he shed his blood for you, for your doubt, for your sinful abandonment of him. Jesus died to take all your sins away. Not because you always stayed, not because you did things perfectly, but because he loved you in spite of your sins. And he died so that you would be forgiven. Jesus has taken all of your sins away. He's forgiven the sins of those pastors who are going to sin, and those graduates, those parents, and the servant of God. And then, because God is gracious, he didn't say to the servant of God, all right, that's it. Elisha, find a new servant. Find servant number 3. But instead, he lets Elisha show him something. Show him that he is there and always has been. Don't be afraid, the prophet answered. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And Elisha prayed, O Lord, open his eyes so he may see. And the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. I would really like to be able to see that. I wish I could see the angels that protect me on a daily basis. For all of the near car crashes that I've been in or my family has been in, all the health scares, just thinking about the angels that were protecting us along the way, the angels that God sent, I really wish I could see them. I can't. I know they're there because God has said so in his word. Those people, the prophet and his servant, They were surrounded by horses, chariots, an army of men. But on their side were horses and chariots, an army, not of men, but of angels, horses and chariots of fire. If God's enemies look strong, God is much stronger. And God's angels are sent to protect you. You almost wonder why the king of Syria thought he could capture Elisha. If Elisha saw all the things that were coming ahead of time and was able to tell the king of Israel, go away from there, because they're coming to get you, surely Elisha could have gotten away himself. But in this case, God let Elisha and his servant fall into this so that he could remind them again that he is with them. He is protecting them. Even when it looks really, really bad, God is still there. And the end of this story it's fantastic. I love how this ends. I love what God does next. And I'm not going to tell you what happens, so you're going to have to look it up yourself. 2 Kings chapter 6. Read to the end of the chapter. Not right now. Look it up later. But you should look it up, because it's really cool to see the way that God works. God is there for you. He's there for graduates. He's there for parents. He sends his angels to protect his people. He's always been there. You and I have no reason to be afraid. We can't always see where God is. We can't always see what he's doing. But we know that he's there. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid now. Don't be afraid in the future. That is a command from God. Don't be afraid. If you have done everything right, and you haven't, and I haven't, we've made mistakes. We have sinned because we are sinful people. But if you have done everything right, and things still haven't worked out, remember, that's exactly what happened to Jesus. He lived a perfect life, he taught the people perfectly, and they still put him to death, and they might do the same for you. But his Father didn't leave him, and God won't leave you either. So don't be afraid. Amen.